All right, today we are jumping into one of the most intense stories in the Gospels, the parable of the tenants. Now, on the surface, it's this short, kind of violent tale about a vineyard. But let me tell you, underneath that, it's this incredibly powerful allegory with layers of meaning that were so explosive, they literally put the storyteller's life on the line. So the story kicks off in this deceptively simple way, like all the best stories do. But don't get too comfortable, because it is about to take a really violent and shocking turn. Let's just walk through how this whole thing unfolds.
Okay, so picture this. A landowner pours everything into a piece of property. He plants a vineyard, builds a protective wall, digs a winepress, even puts up a watchtower. He spares no expense. It's a top-of-the-line operation. Then he hands it over to some tenant farmers and goes on a trip, completely trusting them to take care of it.
So, when it's harvest time, the owner does exactly what you'd expect him to do. He sends his servants to pick up his share of the fruit. This was a totally standard deal back then, a simple, fair request to get his cut of the profits. Nothing unusual here. And this is where the whole thing just goes off the rails. The tenants grab the servants, they beat one up, they kill another one, and they stone a third. So the owner sends more servants thinking maybe there was a misunderstanding, and they do the exact same thing to them. This is way beyond a simple disagreement. This is a full-blown, violent, murderous rebellion. So after all these failed attempts, the owner makes one final, almost desperate move. He decides to send his own son, his heir. And his thinking is just heartbreakingly optimistic. Surely, he thinks, surely they will respect my son. But nope. The tenants see the son coming, and their greed just completely takes over. They literally say to each other, hey, this is the heir. If we kill him, this whole place will be ours. So they drag him outside the vineyard, and they murder him. This is the ultimate act of defiance, and it absolutely seals their fate.
So obviously, this isn't just some thriller about a business deal gone horribly wrong. Jesus is telling this story directly to the most powerful religious leaders of his day. So the big question is, what was he really trying to say? What was the hidden message?
All right, to really get what Jesus was doing here, we have to crack the code. This isn't just a story, you see. It's a prophetic allegory. Every single piece, every character, every object is a symbol for something much, much bigger. It's basically a coded message about the entire history of Israel and its relationship with God.
And here it is. This is the key that unlocks the whole thing. The landowner, that's God. The vineyard he's so carefully built, that's the nation of Israel. And the tenants, the ones put in charge, well, they represent the religious leaders at the time. The servants who get beaten and killed are the long line of prophets God sent throughout history. Think Isaiah, Jeremiah, all of them. And the son, the final messenger, well, that's Jesus, making a stunning and incredibly dangerous claim about who he is. And then, just to make sure absolutely no one in the crowd misses the point, Jesus drops this bombshell quote from the Psalms. He's looking right at the builders, the religious leaders, and calling himself the rejected stone. It's this incredible reversal. He's saying the very thing you are about to throw away is going to become the foundation of everything. It's a clear prediction of his own death and his ultimate triumph. Now, to really feel the impact of this parable, why it was so inflammatory, you have to understand the world it was told in. First-century Judea was an absolute powder keg of social and economic tension, and this story basically just lit the fuse.
See, this story hit home because it was home for the people listening. This wasn't some abstract fairy tale. They lived this reality of distant wealthy landlords, of crushing rent payments, and the constant threat of being kicked off their land. There were actual peasant revolts over this stuff. So when Jesus starts talking about tenants violently resisting, he's tapping into this deep, simmering anger and aiming it squarely at the temple leadership, accusing them of hoarding the real fruit that God wanted, justice and mercy. And this really just shows why the story landed like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just some spiritual lesson. It was a public accusation. In front of everybody, he was telling the leaders that they were the wicked tenants who had failed God and were about to commit the ultimate crime.
This story was so central to the early Christian message that it actually shows up in 3 of the Gospels: Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And while the core story is the same, if you look closely, you can see how each author tweaked it just a little bit, sharpening the focus for their own communities.
Yeah, so each gospel writer kind of uses the story like a different lens. Matthew, who's writing mainly for a Jewish audience, really hammers home this theme of judgment. He explicitly says the kingdom will be taken away and given to others, which is a huge statement. Mark, probably the earliest version, really focuses on how this all fulfills ancient prophecy, especially about Jesus being the beloved Son. And Luke, who's always focused on social dynamics, he makes sure to point out the crowd's horrified reaction and how the leaders were basically afraid of the people.
So, okay, a 2,000-year-old story about a vineyard, why does it still matter today? Well, because its core themes, stewardship, accountability, justice, those things are absolutely timeless. They never go out of style.
You can see this parable's vineyard pretty much everywhere you look. It's a powerful warning to any leader, in politics, in business, in religion, who forgets who the vineyard really belongs to. It's a sharp critique of any system that exploits people for profit. You can even read it as a huge call for environmentalism, a challenge to take care of this planet, this vineyard that we've all been given. And at the end of the day, it gets really personal, asking each one of us, what are you doing with the gifts you've been given?
And that's really where the story leaves us. It turns the mirror right back on us. The final question isn't just about some ancient leaders from long ago, it's a challenge for right now. In the vineyard of our own lives, with the unique gifts and opportunities we've been given, what kind of tenants are we choosing to be?